In 2021, I made this long response video. This Christian apologist named Shawn McDow went to a Christian high school in Florida and pretended to be an atheist.
To make a long story short, after I started to read people of different worldviews, I came to the conclusion there's no good scientific evidence that God exists. There's no reason to think the Bible is true, let alone inspired. I mean, there's far too many contradictions and errors and mistakes in the Bible. Not to mention things like misogyny and slavery and genocide to come from a holy God.
The point of this was to argue with these teenagers to help them refine their arguments for the truth of Christianity. In the process of playing the role of the atheist, Shawn makes some pretty bad arguments. He dodges questions, says things that aren't true, and at times even comes off pretty condescending to these kids. After the better part of an hour of this, Shawn reveals that he's actually a Christian and admits that at times he purposely used nonsensical arguments while playing the atheist.
You might have noticed sometimes instead of answering a question, I was like, string theory, multiverse, complex words act as if you answer something but really didn't. I played that card a few times.
I thought this was pretty shitty behavior. I grew up in an evangelical Christian home in the South where I was taught apologetics, sometimes from the work of Josh McDowell, Shawn's famous and somewhat wealthy Christian apologist father. When I left Christianity, I immediately faced abuse from my family. The second I said, I'm an atheist, a switch flipped in their minds. My speech was now always an attack on them. My opinions were info hazards from which they required protection. My behavior, no matter what I did, confirmed some preconceived narrative about non-believers. Oh, you're not doing well? Well, that's the removal of God's favor. Oh, you're doing very well? Well, that's your reward from Satan, the prince of this world. You did a good deed? See, that's because you secretly believe in God. You did something I don't like? Atheists have no moral center. You can't, as the other, have a properly functioning relationship with people like this, and I didn't. But I understood perfectly why they thought and acted this way. They had been trained to dehumanize their outgroup, including atheists, since childhood, just like I had. So I saw this exercise in this Christian high school as a continuation of that training, and I objected to it not because atheist Shawn made bad arguments that I wanted to correct, but to point out that his impersonation of an atheist is exactly the kind of training that leads Christians to treat atheists badly. If Shawn makes a mistake, it's not Shawn who reaps the consequences. It's the atheists which these students encounter in the future. Some of those atheists might even be in that class. As I discuss this, we should acknowledge the societal context in which all of this is taking place. This high school is in the southern US, which is an area culturally dominated by conservative, usually Protestant, and in some places evangelical Christianity. This is a place where atheists are a minority who often experience marginalization, given that our families, neighbors, teachers, bosses, and elected officials are often conservative Christians who tend to have uninformed and extremely negative views of atheists. Too often, entire families turn on their atheist loved ones here. Sometimes we get illegally fired from our jobs for not believing in God and nothing is done about it. This is not Western Europe. For a lot of us, it sucks to be an atheist here. Having an actual atheist present would humanize atheists for the audience. The misguided beliefs that Christians use to mock their atheist peers, like that atheists think everything just popped into existence from nothing one day, continue to exist because atheists aren't present when Christians discuss those beliefs in apologetics class. Now, at the end of Shawn's act, he does say that Christians should be nice to atheists.
I don't think we realize as Christians the stories we tell, the attitudes we have, the jokes we laugh at, what it often communicates to people who are not believers. So I just want you to reflect upon this.
In my original response, I thanked him for this, which I eventually came to very much regret. I'm going to get into some pretty personal stuff in this video. I've been meaning to make this one for about a year now, but there's so much I wanted to include, and I'm so close to the subject that I've just kept putting it off over and over again out of fear of not doing it justice. There is way more to the story than I can possibly include in one video, so I'm going to do a Discord hangout to discuss this further with anyone who is interested. That will be at 6 p.m. Central Time on Monday the 25th over on the American Humanist Association Discord in the voice chat. I see the AHA as basically if the right side of history was a nonprofit organization. They supported the expansion of civil rights, including desegregation, years before the civil rights movement took off. Just yesterday, I spoke to their executive director and learned that they gave a grant to their chapter in Biloxi, Mississippi to feed local families who have been targeted by ICE. I mean, come on, how could you not be a fan after hearing that? They have 235 local groups around the country doing great work and a legal team who defends the freedom of atheists, humanists, and some religious minorities. They just won a case in West Virginia against a Catholic school who tried to use $5 million in taxpayer money to fund their religious ministry. I'm an extremely proud member of the American Humanist Association because they're on the right side of the history that's being written right now. I know you guys want to be too, so come join the AHA. Click the link in the description and pin comment to sign up for membership. It's definitely worth it. And that allows you to join me on Discord on Monday the 25th. A big thank you to the AHA for sponsoring this video. Y'all are incredible. That response video blew up, and Shawn saw it within just a couple of days. He made his own response to me where he, again, was polite, but did not acknowledge my primary point, that by impersonating us and being an ass while doing it, he was training Christians to view us as an oppositional force to be debated rather than regular people to have relationships with. In fact, Shawn revealed in his response that he apparently does this all the time and sometimes with an audience of thousands of children, even in other countries. He also trains other Christian evangelists to do this in other schools and churches. Like, there's a whole nationwide, or better said, international system in place where guys act like atheists so Christians can practice defending themselves from our attacks. And he's proudly behind it.
I've done this, I don't know, maybe hundreds of times. Youth groups of 10 to a stadium in the Philippines, actually with 8,000 people, which I think was maybe too many to do this in.
Shawn then reached out to me and we had a private conversation. He asked me to just say what I wanted to say to him. I further explained my issues with it all. He didn't argue with me and even thanked me for talking to him. I was not used to being treated that way at the time. Looking back, he just exhibited base level human decency for 45 minutes over Zoom. But I was so unaccustomed to Christians his age, close to my parents' age, showing me basic respect, that this interaction felt like I had just spoken to, I don't know, like the ideal parent to Jesus Christ himself. Unfortunately, I let his simple acts of politeness color my view of him a little too much. He invited me onto his channel for a conversation, not debate, and I accepted. Again, he was nice, he let me say the things I wanted to say, and he even said on camera, "I'm so sorry anyone mistreated you." I had never heard that from an evangelical. We kind of became friends and talked off camera sometimes. I went on his channel again and was able to talk about how Christians can mend relationships with atheists, so things felt good. After a while, I thought, I could ask him if he plans to take what I said into account and stop poisoning the well against atheists with his ridiculous impersonations, but I never did that. Shawn never at any point in our relationship acknowledged that he did anything he needed to change. He heard me speak my concerns to him, but I never got any indication that he really listened. I didn't require that of him, though, again, because he was really polite. In the meantime, my channel started growing way faster than before, and Shawn's probably did too. My subscribers blew up, people started donating to me, I suddenly started getting invites from properly big podcasts that never showed any interest in me before. Some group in Hawaii even wanted to fly us both out to speak to them about how to have cordial conversations across the ideological divide or something like that. This was very clearly the launching point for a career much larger than my YouTube channel. I was looking at a straightforward path to becoming the next atheist celebrity. The podcast offers, though, did not feel right. They were from Christian or even right-wing shows that wanted me to appear to be the polite atheist counterpart to the Christian they were actually promoting. Sometimes they asked me to debate popular Christian men, creating a piece of content that would definitely generate buzz for everyone involved, including me. In all of this, I didn't see a way to actually do what I created my channel to do. Humanize apostates, call attention to the ways we're dehumanized, and undermine the Christian versus atheist mentality which tears our families apart. It felt to me that these opportunities I was being offered either required me to be cordial where calling out systemic abuse was warranted, or combative where I could benefit more from cooperation. At some point during this time, I went to visit my family, who at that point had not watched any of my videos and were clearly ashamed of my work. I told them somewhat offhandedly that I had been working with Christian apologist Shawn McDow lately, and remember how I said telling them I was an atheist just flipped a switch? Well, now it flipped back in the other direction. Instantly, I was a good child again, and they were so proud that as far as atheists go, I was one of the good ones. I can honestly say that doing a fucking live stream with a random Christian apologist did more to change how the Christians in my real life that didn't even watch my content perceived me than anything I have ever done previous or have ever done since. At the time, this felt great for about a day. When I got home, I was disgusted. I began to trust my instinct that a lot of the positive attention I was getting from Christians was kind of shallow. They didn't really care about the things that I said on Shawn's channel about how Christians needed to change to mend relationships with their atheist family members. They cared that I showed myself willing to cooperate with them to produce media. Over the following months, I turned down offer after offer from popular Christian and right-wing media, and eventually, the offer stopped coming in. Shawn asked me to do a discussion with Greg Kokel at some point, who was his friend who made an insultingly asinine course about arguing with atheists. You guys have probably seen my video about that. But when I declined, Shawn was super nice about it and remained open to working with me otherwise. I took solace in the feeling that he was different from the others. Months after the initial buzz around my working with Shawn had begun, Shawn sent me an email. Hey Drew, would you be willing to take a quick look at this article and see if you're okay with it? My next book, A Rebel's Manifesto, comes out early July. I'm going to try to get Fox News or another news source to run this as an op-ed. I want to be sure you think it's fair and accurate and that you're okay with me using this story. Any feedback is welcome. The article recounted the way Shawn and I first interacted and began working together, with Shawn's addition that his approach to working with me meant to purposely forego the growth of his platform in favor of encouraging Christians to love atheists. Near the end of the article, Shawn writes, ironically, there is really nothing new about this approach. The Pharisees wanted to cancel the sinful woman, but Jesus told her that her sins were forgiven and to go in peace. Zacchaeus was a rich tax collector who sided with the Roman occupiers, yet amid criticism by his own people, Jesus dined with him. What happened? Zacchaeus repented of his wrongdoing and promised to restore those he had defrauded. Jesus loved both the oppressed and the oppressor. Like everyone else, Shawn meant to use my interaction with him to promote a book, and on Fox News of all places. A book, by the way, which promotes and praises his atheist impersonation ministry. Shawn's article paints him as rebellious in his gracious act of listening to an atheist, but in reality, Shawn never did acknowledge my main criticism of his atheist roleplay, much less show that he understood it. In fact, in the book this article would promote, Shawn argues that the solution to Christian mistreatment of atheists is making Christians more confident in their own beliefs through his atheist impersonations. Like, what? I've actually had one of his atheist impersonator students tell me that, no, we're not trying to smear or abuse atheists through this. In fact, we tell everyone at the end of this to make sure that you're nice when you're debating atheists. I have responded saying, it doesn't matter how many times you just tell people, be nice, be nice. If you constantly frame atheists as things to be opposed rather than complex beings that you can just talk to. On that note, Shawn compares his listening to me to Jesus forgiving an adulterous woman or a tax collector who defrauded the oppressed. I don't think that's a good comparison personally, because I didn't do anything wrong, and Shawn had nothing to forgive me for. Shawn deliberately and, remember, admittedly made bad and dishonest arguments while pretending to be an atheist, possibly hundreds of times, and I said he shouldn't do that anymore. Framing me as the one to be forgiven of wrongdoing completely reverses our roles in the situation and is either profoundly dishonest or profoundly out of touch with reality. On top of all of that, Shawn's platform did benefit from having me on his channel. I remember us talking about how our work together got more views than his usual content, and that's obviously apparent because it's still one of his most viewed streams ever. Acting as if this move ran counter to monetary incentives is just ridiculous. I responded to Shawn's email saying, "I'm very uncomfortable with this article and would not like our interaction to be used in this way." Shawn did not publish it, and I have not worked with him since. Whether Shawn saw it this way or not, I was a prop used to make him look compassionate and open-minded in public, while in private, he continued to cultivate an adversarial and close-minded perspective in evangelical Christians. Frighteningly, such a system was in place to allow Shawn to do this that even I made more money and received more praise than ever before just by acting as his prop. This realization that the way to truly make it big as an atheist public figure is to actually benefit the religious right all but destroyed me. I actually stopped making content for a while and considered quitting YouTube.
Hey yo, my team wrote the playbook on how to grind. Day to day, we're just surviving in these modern times.
There is a long history of using atheists for personal gain in the Christian evangelist world. Remember the debate between Bill Nye and creationist Ken Ham, where Ken literally admitted live on camera that he would never change his mind no matter what?
What, if anything, would ever change your mind?
Well, the answer to that question is, I'm a Christian. And the Bible is the Word of God. No one's ever going to convince me that the Word of God is not true.
Mr. Nye?
We would just need one piece of evidence. We would need evidence that the universe is not expanding. We would need evidence that the stars appear to be far away, but they're not. That rock layers can somehow form in just 4,000 years. Bring on any of those things, and you would change me immediately.
A lot of people walked away saying Bill completely trounced Ken and came off far more humble and intellectually honest. I think that was basically the mainstream perception of that debate. The truth is, though, this debate was proposed by Answers in Genesis, the creationist organization, and it did exactly what they intended it to do.
Here's what happened. They strategically placed Bill Nye at the Creation Museum. After that debate, they raised millions of additional dollars for the Ark Encounter. Was Bill Nye responsible for some of that? Unfortunately, probably yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. We don't like your I know what. 1, 2, 3.
It's a theme park of biblical proportion. But until now, the money to make it has not been flooding in. $15 million in the last 2 weeks came from a rather ironic chain of events.
Who don't understand natural law.
When thousands watched science advocate Bill Nye debate Ham online, believers pulled out their wallets.
$15 million in 2 weeks. Answers in Genesis got so much buzz from this that they were able to convince the state of Kentucky and local city governments to sell them 100 acres for $1 and subsidize the park to the tune of tens of millions of dollars after that, under the assumption that the Ark Encounter would massively benefit the local area in tourism dollars. That did not turn out to be true, at least not to the degree that Ken Ham promised, but the $100+ million exhibit is still standing and receiving so many donations that they're currently expanding and developing a life-size animation of Noah who talks to guests, answering questions about the Ark and the flood, all powered by ChatGPT. I guess if American education is cooked, then, why not? Let's just go out in the most hilariously ridiculous way you could possibly imagine. The continued existence of this exhibit means that tens of thousands of children per year are indoctrinated into science denial on its grounds. Answers in Genesis knew exactly what it was doing when they set up that debate. They knew it did not matter if Bill came off looking better to the average person. Their base just needed to see a creationist positioned as an equal against a respected science educator, and they donate enough to create an entire empire of pseudoscience. This is the Christian apologist playbook. They debate us or otherwise work with us, knowing that it doesn't matter much if they lose an argument, because they can benefit regardless.
Audiences can relate their experience in life with the villains and their dastardly doings.
Debates in general do not persuade people to switch teams. In 2019, researchers Caroline Lepec and Vincent Pons published an article titled "How Do Campaigns Shape Vote Choice? Multi-Country Evidence from 62 Elections and 56 TV Debates." The study tracked nearly 100,000 respondents across the US, Canada, New Zealand, and Europe from 1952 to 2017. It examined their day-to-day behavior to determine when people made their final choices for who to vote for, and whether watching debates influenced undecided voters to make up their mind or caused decided voters to switch sides. The researchers found no evidence for either. Most importantly, our event study finds that TV debates, for all the interest they generate, the large viewing audience they draw, and the many media commentaries they provoke, neither increase individual vote choice consistency nor reduce the distance to final vote shares. Basically, debates don't change minds on politics, not for the debaters or the audience. When it comes to religion, I think there's reason to believe that debates, or even the presentation of evidence for one's position, are particularly unpersuasive. Yes, I'm going to talk about creds for the 1000th time on this channel. In anthropologist Joseph Henrich's theory of religious belief formation, there is something called credibility-enhancing displays, or creds. The idea is that engaging in costly behaviors for the sake of your religion influences those in observation to see your religious ideals as credible. After all, if you're willing to sacrifice for a belief, there must be something to that belief. There is empirical support for this theory. Henrich and his team have found that individuals who are exposed to high levels of religious creds by their caregivers were especially likely to report currently believing in the existence of God with high certainty. Conversely, those exposed to especially low levels of religious creds were most likely to currently report a lack of belief in God with high certainty. Importantly, they also found that verbal expressions of religious belief and prodding of one's children to believe have limited efficacy in the absence of creds. People tend to form their beliefs on religious issues not based on empirical evidence or philosophical arguments, but on their observations of the behavior of important people in their lives. If you want to influence someone's religious ideas, just arguing with them or having them watch you debate someone else is probably a waste of time. Note that I'm not saying that argument is useless in all contexts. Challenging discussion with people you care about is impactful, for instance, but without that relational element, there's not much persuasive power there. So if that's the case, how can debating or otherwise appearing alongside an atheist even help religious evangelists? In Ken Ham's case, he benefited in two ways. One, he was able to frame what is to be debated. Literally any credible biologist will tell you that there is no debate whatsoever over whether or not some evolutionary process is responsible for the current shape of life on Earth. Genuine debate within the field of biology only exists within an evolutionary framework. The question is, what are the exact mechanisms of evolutionary change within specific contexts? The question is not, does evolution happen at all? Likewise, in fields like geology, cosmology, and astrophysics, there is no debate over whether or not everything in the observable universe literally poofed into existence in its current form 6,000 years ago. By framing his debate with Bill Nye around the question, is creation, as in fundamentalist Christian young earth creationism, a viable model of origins, Ken Ham confined the discussion. If we're to take seriously one religious idea of our origins, we must first demonstrate that it's more viable than all other religious ideas on the subject. Through the debate's framing, though, Ham effectively eliminated the need for him to do this before comparing his religious beliefs to scientific knowledge. Then he put his deeply unserious ideas in conversation with rigorously tested scientific models, making us act, if only for a day, as if these things are in any way comparable. This alone was a victory for Ken, and it was all achieved through framing. A second way the debate benefited Ken was that it artificially inflated the importance and seriousness of this question itself. Is creation a viable model of origins? No, of course it's not. We know that. No academic takes that seriously outside of deeply religious and heavily indoctrinated circles. But hosting an hours-long formal debate over this question has us treat this question as if it's an important one to re-examine. Whatever effect this had on non-creationists in the audience, it's clear that the extremely loyal and scientifically illiterate following of Ken Ham loved seeing a huge group of educated, worldly people entertain their ideas for a while, because that doesn't happen otherwise. This energized them enough to create an overwhelming economic victory for Answers in Genesis, which has led to the indoctrination of far more people into creationism than the debate ever could have dissuaded from creationism. The discussions and debates with religious apologists, which I regularly turn down, stand to score points for my would-be opponents in the same ways. I've been asked to debate things like, is Christianity harmful? Is purpose better found in religion or atheism? And is Christianity moral? Dozens of times. The framing of all of those is ridiculous, though. It presumes that Christianity has one true form which can be judged definitively, that it can't exist in contradictory forms as it does in observable reality. It presumes a sense of purpose is something objective and rationally obtained, not something subjective and emotional that can be derived from a multitude of, again, contradictory things. It presumes that atheists like me necessarily oppose all Christianity like evangelicals oppose atheism. These debates frame these issues in ways which replicate the evangelist's own philosophical framework in the minds of the audience, making it difficult for us to see the issues in any other way. They are not set up to seek creative and helpful answers to philosophical questions, but rather to reinforce a conflict that benefits the hosts of the debate. My work with Shawn did some of this for him, but it benefited him in the following way the most, I think. Friendly discussion with me allowed Shawn to appear more ethically conscientious than he actually was. Shawn was very polite the whole time we worked together, even while we disagreed publicly, and my audience responded to that extremely positively. Atheist commenters heaped praise on him and subscribed to his channel just for that. Meanwhile, Shawn elsewhere promotes extremely dangerous misinformation about LGBT people, that abuse can make you gay, and being trans is a social contagion, things that inform the real-life removal of LGBT rights happening in the US right now. Also, remember, he never stopped training other evangelists to impersonate atheists for apologetics target practice. These are not ethical things to do. His surface-level gestures of politeness toward me persuaded me and the audience to see him positively, without him actually changing the behaviors that earned him our criticism in the first place. God, the number of times I've seen an atheist guy come away from a debate with a rich and relatively powerful Christian or right-winger and be like, oh, you know, he was actually really nice to me. He didn't get angry or anything. I think perhaps we've judged him too harshly. Like, you've got to be kidding me. Being polite on camera to one person for an hour does not erase the systemic harm these people create. How naive are we? And you know, the major difficulty with this is, what was I supposed to do once I realized this was true of my dynamic with Shawn? Break the cordial tone in our conversations and call him out? Then I would come off as the aggressor, even if I was right, which would just make the problem worse. I guess it is possible to effectively cut through someone's politeness and call out their bigotry or hypocrisy, but I didn't trust myself, and I don't trust most people, to pull off that risky move. Finally, engaging in public debate allows those who are not amenable to reason and/or are not interested in what others have to say create the perception that they are. It's good PR as a Christian apologist to make it appear as if your brand of religious conviction is a result of open-minded intellectual exploration, especially when research shows that religious principles are not really adopted in that way. But the real utility in this one is enjoyed by those in positions of power. When they debate, they can create the appearance that any action on the issue at hand is decided through public consensus or genuine deliberation of ideas, when in reality, it is determined by who controls more people and resources. This encourages people to try to influence the powerful or change the status quo through a practice that conveniently doesn't affect those things. I think people like Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, and the like are so active in debate for this reason. These guys rule their own media empires. They control hundreds of millions of dollars and have a direct line to the President of the United States. That is the source of their power, and that is what makes them make up their minds about certain things. Challenging and even defeating them in a debate does nothing to slow them down, which is why they want their opposition to believe that debate is an effective means of combating them. It's why they welcome young atheists and progressives to challenge them face to face. They'll let you crack jokes about how their God commands genocide in the Bible, and they'll laugh with you. After all, Zionists like them are doing genocide in the real world right now, and no amount of joking at their expense will take the bombs which they intend to drop on Palestinians out of their hands. The illusion that we can meaningfully disrupt power and change our world for the better if only we craft the right argument or win the right debate is incredibly comforting for those of us without access to power. But it's also a useful fiction for those in power. This is why being a debate bro is so lucrative for those nominally in opposition to the status quo. Those that benefit from the status quo don't mind directing a tiny bit of their audience and wealth toward you as a reward for helping you maintain the illusion, and your actual fan base enjoys having their hopeful fantasy reinforced. Even if it would be a more lucrative career path for me, and I think it would, I just can't stomach being a debate bro. That video where I debated William Banks a while back was my answer to all the people prodding me to do debates. Like, okay, you want me to engage in faux intellectual blood sport? Fine, here's me in a pathetic fight with a comedian pretending to be a cult leader. We literally punch each other and have a splash fight in a disgusting pool. Are you happy now? Now, I know a lot of you probably think I'm effectively saying that nothing can be done to combat religious overreach and right-wing bullshit and that we should just give up. No, debate is not the only option. That's my point. There are other ways to make real change. People change their minds about big things like religion and politics because of human connection and real-life experiences. A criticism of this video might be that I informed my thinking about debate with my own personal experiences. And that is true to a large degree. But doesn't that just prove my point? That's how it works, and that's what we have to use to change anything. Our first step is to plug into existing secular and progressive organizations and create real-life communities with them. Then we take real-life political action with our communities. Things like canvassing, lobbying, giving testimonies, forming mutual aid networks, service projects which show the world we're good people. We content creators must build our platforms on our own terms rather than playing into the wants of the religious right through debate culture. Then we must help our audiences plug into real-life communities focused on real-world change. This has been easier said than done, until now. This is where I introduce you to the executive director of the American Humanist Association, Fish Stark, to tell you how the AHA is making this possible and how I have been involved in helping them build a new and kind of unprecedented program for this space. This is probably the biggest announcement I have ever made on this channel.
Some things that people should look out for. So we just won that lawsuit against the state of West Virginia. We have an incredible legal team, and our plan is to continue throwing tax under the wheels of the Christian nationalist trucks. Right? So for your viewers, if you feel that you've experienced a violation of your religious freedom or you've been discriminated against because of your atheist, secular, humanist, Satanist beliefs, we have people who will fight on your behalf. We are already gearing up to try and sue more red states in court for the ways they're trying to waste taxpayer dollars. So that's number one. Number two, we are building advocacy teams right now in states across the country that are going to fight against things like sending our tax dollars to private religious schools. but also fight for things like saying, actually, every kid has a right to a secular public education. Every parent has the right to not have somebody else's religion pushed on their kids. So if you want to work with people who will help you raise your voices to your state legislators and fight back. And then the other thing is, we got 235 local groups around the country. There are places where you can actually go and meet humanists in person and do service projects with them and talk about your values. And that is what we need more than anything right now. And we are working right now on planning out an initiative that's going to have us invest more than we ever have before in giving out grants to people who want to take action against the kind of cruelty that the Trump administration is inflicting on people in this country. Because again, the best argument for humanism is when we go out there and we show our humanity and our empathy in action. That's what makes us people say, like, this is something worth believing in. Was this the point where I talk about the Creator Fund? Can I tell people about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing I'm really excited that we're doing, and this wouldn't have happened without you, is we were able, working together, to secure a massive grant, over $100,000, to launch the first ever Humanist Creator Fund. So the AHA is going to be investing directly in humanist content creators to help them talk about humanism, build a stronger audience, professionalize, and make it so that we're starting to build a counterweight to the massive propaganda machine on the right, right? And, you know, Charlie Kirk started out with a $10,000 grant from Foster Friess. We're going to start building our own movement of humanist content creators. And Drew, it's like, the thing that's really cool about you, Drew, is rather than trying to focus all the attention yourself and kind of pull the ladder up behind you like a lot of the Charlie Kirk types would want to do, you've been laser focused on coaching us to say, how do we get more people to get to your level so that there are tons of humanist content creators who are able to do incredible work like you do. So we're all in on it.
Just to be clear, the moment that Fish and I realized we had that giant grant, I told Fish and the rest of the AHA, I don't have to receive any of that money to keep working on this. So, like, officially, this is a volunteer thing. Just to let you know. My Patreon's linked in the description. But yeah, if and when you see other creators doing sponsored videos with the AHA in the future, that's a part of the project they just launched. Hopefully, other big secular organizations will follow their lead. I think that they should and kind of need to, which is why this is already another project of mine, which I'm working on behind the scenes. Since my run-in with Shawn, I've been trying to find a way to make real change, not just make content that keeps us stuck where we are. I think this is the way we do it. So I urge you guys genuinely, join the American Humanist Association, find your local chapter, and build it bigger. If you do that, email me. I want to share success stories of doing this because it totally can be done. The resources are there. Figure out your local chapter and do it. I promise that doing so will be vastly more fulfilling and helpful in building a better world than any debate you have ever watched. Now, before I go, I want to thank Sarah Stein Lubrano for her work on this topic. The latter part of this video was very much influenced by her book, Don't Talk About Politics: How to Change 21st Century Minds. I strongly recommend all of you pick up this book. All right, thank you guys for watching. I've been Drew of Genetically Modified Skeptic. A special thanks to my patrons for making it possible for me to essentially take on a new part-time job of working with secular nonprofits to create new programs. And praise be unto Our Lady, River, who I got to hang out with at BajaCon recently. That was awesome. She is my top patron and the official savior of this channel. Starting soon, patrons at the $5 level and up will get their name in the end credits. You don't have to, you can opt out, but that's a perk that's coming up. That will be on top of the Patreon-only videos they already get. If you want to support my work, subscribe and check out the religious studies courses I produce with Dr. Joseph Laycock. They're attached to the video below. As always, if you are an apostate in need, there are resources linked in the description to help you find community through places like the AHA and mental health support. Remember to be kind to others in the comments, and until next time, stay skeptical.